dead weight. Olivia's words hung in the dining room air, a toxic cloud. My body stiffened, the spoonful of lasagna frozen halfway to my mouth. The silence that followed was so dense, I could hear the ticking of the wall clock I'd given David last Christmas. "Olivia, apologize to your grandma right now." Jessica's voice cut through the silence, but the damage was already done. My granddaughter, the very same girl who used to run into my arms when she was little, who'd fall asleep with her head in my lap on Sunday afternoons, had just called me deadweight. At 67, I'd faced plenty of pain. The arthritis slowly deforming my hands, early widowhood, the quiet loneliness of so many nights. But nothing compared to this. "Sorry, Grandma," she mumbled without meeting my eyes, before pushing back her chair and storming away from the table. I tried to smile, as if the words hadn't struck me like a physical blow. My hands, already shaky with age, now trembled even more as I tried to cut a piece of the lasagna I'd prepared with such care that morning. "Mom, she didn't mean that." David tried to smooth things over, his face a mix of shame and embarrassment. "You know how teenagers are. She's 19, David. Not a child anymore," I replied softly, trying to hold on to some dignity. "And don't worry, I don't intend to be a burden to anyone. How did we get here? How could my sweet granddaughter, the one I practically raised, wound me so deeply with just 2 little words? It all started a few months ago, when I realized my house was just getting too big for me. Alone. 2 empty bedrooms gathering dust. Stairs that felt more challenging with every passing day for my tired legs. A garden I just couldn't keep up with like I used to. The house where I'd raised my son and spent 40 years with my husband now felt like a museum of memories. Beautiful to visit, but hard to live in. That Sunday morning, I woke up at 6. Same as always. My body might be aging, but my habits remain the same. I had my black coffee, swallowed my blood pressure and arthritis meds, and started on the lasagna I was taking over for Sunday dinner at my son's house. I kneaded the dough with difficulty, my joints protesting with every movement. I could have bought it pre-made, but Olivia always said mine was the best in the world. I wanted to see her smile like she used to. Lately, she'd been distant, always glued to her phone, short answers, impatient glances. While the sauce simmered slowly on the stove, I thought about the proposal I'd make during dinner. I decided to sell the house and buy a ground floor apartment. Something smaller, easier to maintain. Maybe even closer to David's house. Not to intrude, just to be more present in their lives, especially Olivia's, who'd always been my little darling. When I got to their house, Jessica greeted me with a quick peck on the cheek before heading back to the kitchen. My daughter-in-law was never overly warm, but we got along well enough. David gave me a big hug, like always. Olivia was in the living room, sprawled on the couch, eyes glued to her phone screen. "Hey, Grandma," she said without looking up. "I brought your favorite lasagna," I commented, trying to start a conversation. "Cool," she replied dryly. During dinner, I tried to join the conversation. David talked about a promotion at work. Jessica complained about a nosy neighbor. Olivia remained silent, pushing her food around without much interest. That's when I decided to mention my plans. "I'm thinking of selling the house," I announced during a lull in the conversation. It's getting hard to take care of everything by myself. David stopped eating and looked at me with concern. "And where would you go, Mom?" "I thought about buying a smaller apartment, something on the ground floor, no stairs." That's when he made the suggestion. more out of obligation than genuine desire. "You could come live with us, Mom." I saw the panicked look Jessica shot him. You didn't have to be a genius to know the idea didn't thrill her. And then came Olivia's comment. Those words I just can't get out of my head. "Why don't you just be honest? Nobody wants Grandma living here. She can barely get up the stairs by herself. She'd just be more deadweight for us to take care of." After that disastrous dinner, I asked to use the bathroom. I just needed a moment alone. On my way back, I passed Olivia's room and heard her muffled voice. She was on the phone, crying. "I don't know what to do, Chloe. I can't tell them I lost my scholarship. I've been secretly paying for 2 months, using the money Dad gives me for expenses. I just can't keep this up." I stopped, surprised. Olivia had always been the family's pride and joy for earning a full scholarship to medical school. David and Jessica couldn't possibly afford that insane tuition. My heart ached. I understood her frustration, the pressure she must have been feeling. When I returned to the living room, I looked at my family with new eyes. David, always trying to be the perfect son, the perfect father, the perfect husband, carrying the weight of expectations on his slumped shoulders. Jessica, meticulously managing the household finances, always worried about making ends meet. And Olivia, my Olivia, hiding a secret that was eating her alive. I said my goodbyes early that day, claiming I was tired. When I hugged Olivia, I felt her stiffness, but also a slight tremor in her shoulders, as if she was holding back tears. "I love you, sweetie," I whispered in her ear. She just nodded, not saying a word. On the way home, in the taxi, I finally let the tears fall. I wasn't crying over Olivia's harsh words, but for the pain I'd glimpsed behind them. My granddaughter was hurting, and I, who'd always been her safe harbor, hadn't even noticed. That night, I couldn't sleep a wink. I tossed and turned, thinking about Olivia, her lost scholarship, the burden she was carrying all by herself. I remembered when she was 6 and fell off her bike. I rushed to help her up, but she, with her little face red and determined, said, "I can do it myself, Grandma." Even hurt, she wanted to prove her independence. Some things never change. The next morning, I made a decision. I opened the dresser drawer where I kept the few pieces of jewelry my husband had given me throughout our life together. They weren't many, or terribly valuable, but they held special meaning. There was the engagement ring with a tiny pearl, the gold necklace I got when David was born, the emerald earrings from our 25th anniversary. I gathered everything and put it in a small box. Then I called a trusted jeweler. He offered me a reasonable amount, not as much as they were worth sentimentally, but enough to help Olivia for a few months. 3 days after that disastrous dinner, I called my granddaughter. "Olivia, can we meet for coffee? Just us." There was a silence on the other end of the line. "Is this about Sunday?" "Look, Grandma, I already apologized." "It's not about that," I interrupted. "I just want to talk. It's been a while since we had some time just for us." She hesitated, but finally agreed. We met at a coffee shop near her college. When I arrived, Olivia was already there, sitting in a corner, fiddling with her phone as usual. But as I got closer, I noticed her eyes were red and puffy. She'd been crying. "Hi, sweetie," I said, sitting across from her. "Hi, Grandma," she replied, putting her phone away. "Look, about Sunday." "Liv, I'm going to get straight to the point," I interrupted, placing my wrinkled hand over hers. "I know you lost your scholarship." Her eyes widened, filling with tears. "How did you?" That doesn't matter. What matters is that you don't have to carry this burden alone." She lowered her eyes, embarrassed. "I didn't want anyone to know. Dad's so proud, and money's already tight." I opened my purse and pulled out an envelope. "Here's enough money for 3 months' tuition. I sold some jewelry your grandpa gave me." Olivia looked at me incredulously, tears now streaming freely down her face. "Grandma, no. Your jewelry. After what I said, I was horrible to you." "Words said in anger are like birds set free, Liv. You can't catch them again. But you can choose not to build a nest for them in your heart." She started to sob, covering her face with her hands. A few people in the coffee shop looked our way, but I didn't care. I got up and sat beside her, hugging her like I used to when she was little. "Forgive me, Grandma," she whispered between sobs. "I don't think you're a burden. I was just so scared, so frustrated. I couldn't get the scholarship back and I didn't know what to do." "I know, my dear. Fear makes us say things we don't mean." We stayed like that for a while, just holding each other in silence. When she calmed down, I grabbed a napkin and wiped her tears, just like I did when she was a little girl. "Now, we need to talk to your parents," I said softly. Panic returned to her eyes. "I can't, Grandma. They'll be so disappointed." "They'll be more disappointed if they find out you hid this from them. Trust me, Liv. Your parents love you more than anything in this world." "How can you be so good to me after what I said?" I smiled, holding her hands in mine. "Because I've known you since you fit in my arms. I know your heart is bigger than words said in a moment of desperation." In that moment, I saw in Olivia's eyes the same little girl who used to run into my arms when I arrived, who'd proudly show me her drawings, who'd confide in me about her first teenage crushes. Behind the scared young adult, my little granddaughter was still there. "What about your house? Are you still going to sell it?" "Probably. But don't worry about that right now. One thing at a time." Olivia nodded, looking lighter, as if a weight had been lifted from her shoulders. "Grandma," she said, squeezing my hands, "when I'm a doctor, I want to be as strong as you." I smiled, feeling my heart fill with a warmth no cruel word could erase. Words do carry weight, yes, but some, the truest ones, have the power to heal wounds that other words opened. As we left the coffee shop, Olivia looped her arm through mine, adjusting her pace to my slower rhythm. The afternoon sun bathed her young face in a golden light, and for a moment I glimpsed the strong, compassionate woman she was becoming. "Let's set up dinner with your parents tomorrow," I suggested. "I'll be there with you." "Promise you won't leave me alone?" "Never, my dear. Never." And so we walked together, supporting each other. Not as a burden, but as a balance. Because in the end, that's what family means. Being present, not just in moments of joy, but especially when words weigh heavy and the path seems uncertain. What would happen at that dinner with David and Jennifer? I still didn't know. How they'd react to the news about the lost scholarship, if they'd accept my financial help, if we'd find a permanent solution. All that was still to come. But of one thing I was sure. Words can hurt, but they can also heal. And in that moment, the right words had begun to rebuild a bridge I feared was broken forever. As we walked to the car, Olivia squeezed my hand. Her touch, once so familiar and then so distant, now held a new meaning. It wasn't a child's hand seeking protection anymore, nor a reluctant teenager's. It was the hand of a young woman acknowledging she needed help, and that asking for help wasn't weakness. How are we going to tell them, Grandma? She asked, her voice still trembling. Honestly, sweetie, it's the only way. We agreed dinner would be at my place the following night. I wanted neutral ground, somewhere Olivia would feel safe, and her parents could listen without the distractions of everyday life. I spent the afternoon preparing a beef stew, one of those that simmers for hours on low heat, filling the house with a comforting aroma. My hands ached, but there was a purpose in that ache. As I cooked, I remembered when Olivia was just 7 years old. It was the first time I noticed her fierce determination, the same one that now made her hide problems so as not to disappoint anyone. It was an October afternoon, the sky overcast, threatening rain. Olivia was at the kitchen table, silent tears streaming down her little face as she struggled with her math homework. "What's wrong, my love?" I asked, sitting beside her. "I can't do it, Grandma," she sobbed. "My teacher said I have to finish it by tomorrow, but I don't understand any of it." I looked at her notebook. They were multiplication problems, a bit advanced for her age. "I can help you," I offered. She shook her head fiercely. "No, I want to do it myself. My teacher said I'm smart, that I can do it." "Olivia," I said softly, "sometimes even the smartest people need help. But Dad said I'm big now, that I have to handle my own stuff." My heart ached. David had always been demanding, believing he was preparing his daughter for the world. He didn't realize how much his words weighed on those small shoulders. "You know," I began, picking an apple from the fruit bowl, "when your grandpa and I bought our house, we didn't know a thing about plumbing. The first time a pipe burst, your grandpa tried to fix it himself." Her eyes fixed on me, curious. "And what happened?" "Well, we ended up with more water in the house than we would have if he'd just called a plumber right away." I chuckled at the memory. "Your grandpa was a very proud man, you know. He thought asking for help was admitting weakness." "And it isn't?" she asked, wiping her tears. "No, sweetie. Asking for help is a sign of intelligence. It's recognizing that together, we're stronger than alone." She was silent for a moment, processing my words. "So, you can help me just a little bit?" "Of course I can," I replied, feeling a small but significant victory. That afternoon, I didn't just teach Olivia multiplication. I planted a seed I hoped would grow with her. The understanding that true strength lies in knowing when to reach out. The sound of the doorbell brought me back to the present. It was them, David, Jennifer, and Olivia, arriving for dinner. When I opened the door, I noticed immediately the tension on my son's face. "Mom, what's going on?" "Olivia's been acting strange since yesterday," said we all needed to talk. "Let's have dinner first," I suggested. "Then we can talk calmly." During dinner, I tried to keep the conversation light, but the anxiety was palpable. Olivia barely touched her food. Jennifer kept casting worried glances at her daughter. And David, always observant, knew something important was coming. When we finished eating, I served coffee in the living room. It was time. "Olivia," I said softly, "do you want to start?" She took a deep breath, her hands trembling as she held the cup. "Dad, Mom, I lost my college scholarship 2 months ago." The silence that followed was dense. I saw David's face pale, while Jennifer brought a hand to her mouth. "What do you mean, lost?" David finally asked, his voice controlled, but I knew that tone. He was fighting not to show disappointment. "My GPA dropped below the required minimum last semester," Olivia explained, looking at her own hands. "I tried to get it back up, Took makeup exams, but it wasn't enough. "And why didn't you tell us sooner?" Jennifer asked, her voice trembling. "Because I knew you couldn't afford the full tuition. Because I didn't want to be another problem, another worry." Olivia exploded, tears finally breaking through. "You already have so many bills, so many struggles. I was supposed to be the pride, not the disappointment." David ran a hand over his face, clearly trying to process the information. "How are you paying for college, then?" Olivia lowered her eyes. "I used the money you gave me for expenses, and borrowed from friends." "Oh my God, Olivia," Jennifer sighed. "Why didn't you trust us?" That's when I decided to intervene. "David, Jennifer, I already talked to Olivia yesterday. I sold some jewelry your father gave me, and I'm offering the money to cover 3 months of tuition while you decide what to do." My son looked at me with a mix of surprise and something I couldn't immediately identify. "Mom, you didn't have to do that." "Yes, I did," I replied firmly. "We're family. When one of us is in trouble, the others help. That's what your father and I always taught you." David stood abruptly and walked to the window, turning his back to us. His shoulders were tense, and for a moment I feared his reaction. When he turned back, I saw something I didn't expect. Tears in my son's eyes. "I failed," he said simply. "As a father, as a provider. My daughter was suffering and I couldn't help. Now my mother, who lives on a fixed income, has to sell her keepsakes to solve a problem that should be mine." "David!" I called, getting up with difficulty and going to him. "You didn't fail. Nobody fails here." "Dad," Olivia joined us, her voice choked. "It's my fault. I should have studied harder, kept the scholarship." It was Jennifer who surprised us then. Always so reserved, so practical. She stood up and hugged her daughter tightly. "No, sweetie. It's our fault for creating an environment where you felt you couldn't share your problems, where you thought you'd be a burden." The word hung in the air, and Olivia's eyes met mine, full of regret. "We'll figure this out together," Jennifer continued, looking at David. "Maybe I can pick up more shifts at the hospital, or we could use some of our savings for the house renovation." "I can get a part-time job," Olivia suggested. "No." David was firm. "Your only job right now is to study and get that scholarship back. Or if that's not possible, we'll find another solution. Maybe a student loan." I watched my family in that moment of shared vulnerability. It was painful, yes, but there was also something beautiful happening. The masks were coming off. Unrealistic expectations giving way to the imperfect but honest reality of who we truly were. "As for your offer, Mom," David turned to me. "We appreciate it from the bottom of our hearts, but I can't let you sell your jewelry." "I already sold them, son," I replied calmly. "And I don't regret it. They're just objects. What matters are the memories I carry in here." I pointed to my heart. "And the chance to help my granddaughter." "Then consider it a loan," he insisted. "We'll pay you back every cent." I smiled, recognizing his father's pride in him. "Whatever you want." That night, after they left, I sat on the porch, watching the stars. I thought about how Olivia's words, dead weight, had hurt me deeply, but also how they'd been the catalyst for a necessary conversation, for the tearing down of invisible walls that had risen between us. 2 weeks later, I got an unexpected call. It was the real estate agent I'd hired to appraise my house. "Mrs. Susan, I found an interested buyer, and he's willing to pay above market value." I felt a mix of relief and melancholy. It was the end of one chapter, the beginning of another. That same afternoon, Olivia showed up unannounced. I found her sitting on the front porch steps when I got back from the grocery store. "Hi, Grandma," Olivia smiled, getting up to take the bags from my hand. "Came to help you with dinner." We went inside together, and as we put away the groceries, she seemed nervous, like she wanted to say something but couldn't find the words. "What's wrong, Liv?" I finally asked. She took a deep breath. "Grandma, my parents and I have been talking a lot these past few days. About you, about the house, about everything. And we came up with a proposal." She sat down at the kitchen table, motioning for me to do the same. "We don't want you to sell your house to a stranger." I frowned, confused. "But I already have an interested buyer. We want to buy it," she said quickly. "Well, not exactly buy. It's more complicated than that." She then explained the plan they'd come up with. David and Jessica would sell their house, which was smaller and newer than mine, and move in here. We'd make some adaptations. They'd convert the downstairs office into a bedroom for me, so I wouldn't have to deal with stairs. They'd take over the house's upkeep, and I'd still live in the place I loved, but without all the burdens that come with it. "You don't have to do this," I said, my voice thick with emotion. "I know it's a long commute for your dad." "Actually, it's closer to my college," Olivia smiled. "And Mom's always wanted a bigger yard. Plus," she hesitated, "it'd be good for all of us to be together. I could help you more and you could help me with my studies, like before." I felt tears welling up. "And your parents? Are they sure about this?" "It was their idea, Grandma. Especially Dad's. He said he realized how much he was letting work consume everything, how he was missing important moments. He said he almost missed the chance to help his daughter when she needed him most, and he doesn't want to make the same mistake with his own mother." I stayed silent, taking it all in. It was a solution I hadn't even considered. Not because it wasn't obvious, but because I never imagined they'd propose it. "What about your privacy?" I asked. "You're an established family. You have your own dynamic." Olivia took my hands in hers, a gesture that completely reversed our usual roles. "Grandma, remember what you told me about asking for help? That it's not weakness, but smart. Well, this isn't about charity or obligation. It's about recognizing that together, we're stronger." In that moment, I saw in her eyes not just my granddaughter, but a reflection of myself. The same determination, the same deep love for family. And I understood that sometimes, accepting help is just as important as offering it. "I need to think about it," I replied honestly. "It's a big decision." "Of course," she smiled. "No pressure. Just don't decide based on what you think is best for us. Decide what's best for you, too." After Olivia left, I walked around the house, touching the walls that had witnessed so many moments of my life. The corner of the living room where David's crib used to be. The mark on the kitchen wall where we'd track his height every birthday. The bedroom that was Robert's and mine for 4 decades. Could I really share all of this? Give up total control? The routine I'd established since I became a widow? Adapt to a new family dynamic with different noises, different schedules, different habits? That night, I dreamed of Robert. We were sitting on the porch, like we did so many times, watching the sunset. "What do you think I should do?" I asked him in the dream. He smiled that way that always melted my heart. "What you've always done, Susan. Follow your heart. But remember, our hearts don't always want what's most comfortable. Sometimes, they want what helps us grow. I woke up with a clarity I hadn't felt in a long time. I picked up the phone and called David. "Son, about your proposal. Let's talk." 6 months have passed since that conversation. The move wasn't easy for any of us. There were adjustments, negotiations, moments of tension. Jessica and I had to learn to share the kitchen, each with our own methods and preferences. David had to accept that I still had opinions about how things should be done in the house that was mine for so long. But there were also moments of unexpected grace, like when I found Olivia studying late at night and made hot cocoa for both of us, just like old times. Or when Jessica timidly asked me for the recipe for the spaghetti sauce Robert loved so much. Or even when David invited me to look through old photo albums, and we spent hours reminiscing about stories he'd long forgotten. My downstairs bedroom is smaller than my old one, but Olivia decorated it with so much care, it feels perfectly suited. I have my own TV, my favorite armchair, my books within reach, and most importantly, I have privacy when I need it, and company when I want it. As for Olivia's college, we found a temporary solution. She got a student loan to cover part of the tuition, while David and Jessica cover the rest. It's not ideal. There will be debt to pay in the future, but it's manageable. And Olivia is studying with renewed determination, resolved not to waste the collective sacrifice we're making for her. Today is Sunday again, and we're all in the kitchen. Jessica and I are preparing Sunday dinner together. She's making the salad while I'm taking care of the pot roast. David is setting the table, and Olivia is sitting on the counter, telling us about a particularly demanding professor. He said my last paper was the best in the class, she comments, with a sparkle of pride in her eyes. I wouldn't expect anything less from you, I reply, exchanging a knowing look with her. When we sit down to eat, I observe my family gathered. We're not perfect, far from it. We still have our differences, our moments of impatience, our communication failures. But we've learned something valuable in the past few months. That words have the power not only to wound, but also to heal. Not only to push away, but also to bring closer. "Grandma," Olivia calls to me, interrupting my thoughts. "Are you okay? You seem distant." I smiled at her, at all of them. "I'm great, honey. Just thinking about how things change. How sometimes what seems like an end is really just a new beginning." David raised his wine glass. A toast to family, to this house, and to my mom, who taught us that strength isn't about carrying everything alone, but knowing when to share the load. As we raised our glasses, I thought about the words that had hurt me so much. Dead weight, and how they'd transformed into something completely different. I'm not a burden to my family, nor are they to me. We're anchors for each other, keeping us steady when the waters get rough. And as for words, I've learned that their true weight isn't in the moment they're spoken, but in the echo they leave in our lives. Some wound temporarily, others heal permanently. The secret is knowing which ones to hold in your heart. I look at Olivia, now laughing at one of her dad's jokes, and I feel a profound gratitude. Sometimes, something has to break for us to rebuild it stronger, truer, more complete. "Thank you," I whisper, not to them, but to life, for giving me this second chance. This opportunity to rediscover that, at 67, I still have so much to learn, so much to teach, so much to live. And that, I realize now, has no weight at all. It only has value.